You say 18 now, but you say 21 tomorrow. Then the next time you say 25 because the brain's not even done being developed until age 25, allegedly. It's just a way of pushing it further and further and further up until you eventually come out completely against trans-related care. This is like, you could call it the lead up to a genocide if you want, but people are already dying. This is a war. This is a war of attrition, a genocide by attrition. We've known for a while that there are increasingly more and more anti-trans people. We've also known for a while that Twitter is a place where it's much more comfortable for transphobes to be on there now. Matt Walsh building his platform there. Tucker Carlson has decided that he's just hosting his entire show on Twitter from now on. Like, apparently he's not got a website like I do where he's gonna independently host his links. No, he has a Twitter page where he's gonna post his little clips and videos. Twitter is becoming a right-wing hellscape, frankly, and Elon Musk is the one driving all of those horrendous changes. I recently realized that Elon Musk bought Twitter so that he could make shitposting on Twitter into his job. Like, it basically is his job. And you can see that he spends all day on Twitter. If you go on his page and look at the replies, he is just constantly responding to people with blue check marks. It's all day. And that's one of the things that we're gonna be looking at today. This is called the rabbit hole. There is a cost to putting kids on puberty blockers. For example, bone density flatlines. The teen's bone density plummeted into the ranges of osteoporosis, a condition of weakened bones. Someone comments, is anyone studying mental development? How could it be safe to suppress hormonal development at that age? But it's widely considered unhealthy to do certain activities like go to a strip club. This bacon doesn't taste like a banana, and I'm so mad about that. I picked up this bacon and expected it to taste like a banana. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, that's two completely separate things. How is suppressing hormonal development different from taking them to a strip club? Wow. The blue check mark is really a sign that you have forfeit some of your brain cells. Like, it kind of seems like you have forfeit some of your brain cells. And then the rabbit hole responds, oh, here's an article about increased suicide risk post-transition. Elon Musk also cited this study, and then the screenshot, you know, a Swedish study says, sex-reassigned transsexual persons of both genders had approximately a 3 times higher risk of all-cause mortality than controls. I haven't even looked at the study, but compared than controls, like, what were the controls? Who was the control group? Was it sex-reassigned transsexual persons compared to cisgender persons? Or was it sex-reassigned transsexual persons compared to pre-op trans people? Because if you're comparing, because you're like, okay, you're specifying one specific group of trans people who've had sex reassignment surgery or sexual, like, genital reconstructive surgery, whatever you want to call it. Are you making a comparison of one group of trans people versus others? Or are you just trying to, like, say trans people in general have a slightly increased risk compared, for all forms of mortality? Because being trans is stressful. Is it the surgery or is it the being trans? Because if you do the study that's like, okay, trans people who've had surgery compared to all cisgender people, then that's not gonna give you a clear distinction. If you're trying to say that surgery is the problem, you would need to compare trans people who identify as trans but haven't had surgery versus ones who have had surgery. So it's just like, I'm just telling you this so that you understand how this is being misrepresented, like how this information is being misrepresented. If we take as a given that the other study that the suicide rate is increased is correct, then doing this surgery or chemical sterilization on minors gains nothing in terms of reduced mortality. If it gains you years of life, here's the other thing. Surgery or chemical sterilization on minors gains nothing in reduced mortality. Maybe not reduced overall mortality, but if it's reducing the suicide rate of teenagers and then they're dying of something else in their 60s, that would be better. That would be better. It's the being trans, exactly. It's the being trans. Dude's literally the Skinner meme. People have higher suicide risk after transition. Is it due to the increased prejudice and hatred towards trans people? No, it's the transition that's wrong. Precisely. Why doesn't this bacon drive like a monster truck? And yeah, also notice, Violet points out, none of these transphobes are against hormone blockers used on cis people, only on trans people. Like, I really doubt that they've published a study on pausing. After 2 years of puberty blockers, Emma Basks was prescribed estrogen. Like, but what about cisgender kids who are on puberty blockers for like 4 or 5 years? Like, if you have precocious puberty starting at 8 years old, like, this happens sometimes. Imagine an 8-year-old little girl starts her period at school and how traumatic and difficult that would be. And it's not normal for girls to start their period until maybe like age 13, 14 or so. So if she's on puberty blockers for 5 or 6 years so that, you know, she doesn't have periods anymore from the time that she's 8 years old until she's about 13. Okay, well, are you going to claim that that 5 years of paused puberty is going to lead to like devastating osteoporosis? No, because that's stupid. And because the point is that they want to attack trans people and trans existence. The point is not that puberty blockers inherently or pausing puberty inherently is wrong, but pausing puberty for your gender dysphoria is unacceptable and wrong, and will make up a bunch of lies about the healthcare. Hit like if you're getting extremely tired of having to repetitively say that trans children deserve access to healthcare and don't deserve to suffer. Hit like if you're just as annoyed as I am by this conversation that we keep having to have. So then the thing that we're actually here to discuss today, aside from just a general rant about trans youth deserving access to care, is that Elon Musk is now saying, this is a major problem. I will be actively lobbying to criminalize making severe irreversible changes to children below the age of consent. Shame on those who advocate this. It is utterly contemptible. Keep in mind, this man has a transgender daughter. She is changing her name. She's changing her last name so that she doesn't have to be affiliated or related to him at all. Like, Elon Musk is coming out against his own daughter here. He's like turning this into a political campaign. And if you look, this is his entire Twitter page right now. Like, this is the main thing he's talking about. He's platforming the What is a Woman documentary on Twitter and pushing it to viewers, like forcing it to be viewed by more people. And so, yeah, he's actively saying we need to criminalize. So he's saying we need to throw people in jail. He responded to a, oh gosh, why? Oh no, I didn't mean for that to happen. He posts constantly. Okay, so here's the thing. I'm gonna try to find the tweet that I've lost specifically, but I want to show you while we're here. Like, here's his tweets and replies. Obviously, he's got a lot of like laughing emojis. Oh, he put a laughing emoji at like, you can't say white power because the account suspended. Like, he responds to this End Wokeness account a lot. This is what occupation looks like, not oppressed. He's just constantly talking about, yeah, the phrase gender affirming care is a criminally evil lie. Gender affirming care for minors is pure evil, he says. That's not even the tweet that I was specific. He responds to Dr. Peterson a lot. He's got a lot of like single word responses to people. Like, this is literally, he's made this into the thing that he does with his entire workday now, is just responding to people on Twitter. He just tweets constantly. There's so much to wade through. Jesus. Like, get a life off of the internet, fucking Elon. Jesus Christ. Yeah, supporting the Daily Wire, world champion Streisand effect. As though you aren't artificially inflating the numbers by pushing it to more people. I know, Elon, I'm not stupid. The like 20 some odd million views that the video was getting, or like, that's because you pushed it to people. It's not the fucking Streisand effect. It's an artificially inflated number. Oh my God, what an idiot. So here, yes. So Dr. Peterson says we need to have prison long-term without parole, no mercy, and maybe for the compliant, quote, therapists as well as the butchers they enable. Responding to like the thing that he said earlier, like, we need to be criminalizing these things. So yeah, Dr. Peterson says, yeah, they need to be prison and long-term, no parole, no mercy. No mercy for doctors following best practices medical care for gender dysphoric children. And of course, Elon says to that, absolutely. 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 I really think that Elon Musk is interested in the flavor complexities of lead pellets. Like, I get the impression that he's curious and wants to do a tasting menu. So here we have one of the richest people on the planet saying that if you provide gender-affirming treatment, and perhaps even therapists, even the, quote, therapists who are providing affirming care, they're like, these people support conversion therapy. These people want you to be forced into a cisgender lifestyle. They think that being trans is the absolute worst thing that could happen. Like, you know, if you want to do that to your body as an adult, I guess you have the right, but they don't even actually believe that. They always start with saying, you know, oh, it's reasonable to say that children shouldn't have access to this care. Of course, any reasonable person could see that children can't consent. And like, yeah, here's another one. End Wokeness said, you know, age 18 to vote, 18 to enlist, 18 to buy a pet. What is it actually? Is there, wait, hold on, wait. Is there anywhere where you have to be 18 to buy an animal? Can you not just like as a child go buy a fish? Like, can you not just buy a beta fish by yourself? Do you genuinely, is that a law? Is there a law about you have to be 18 to buy pets? Or is that just some shit that you made up? It kind of sounds like some shit that you made up. 18 to get a tattoo? Yeah, but except that you can get a tattoo at age 16 with parental consent. With parental consent. If your parent knows you well enough and they know that you're mature enough to make the decision, a parent can allow you to get a frivolous body modification like tattooing, which is not at all the same as medically advisable care from a medical professional who has studied this their entire life. I cannot get any more inside the microphone. Maybe some pet stores have policies to not sell live animals to minors. Sure, but it's not like illegal. 18 for a lotto ticket, 18 to sign a contract, 21 to adopt a child, 21 to buy tobacco, 21 to buy alcohol, 21 to buy weed, 21 to gamble. Kids should not have access to permanent medical procedures in order to, quote, and affirm an identity they will likely outgrow. How about you make a comparison to other types of medical care instead of framing it as, like, frivolous body modification? Like, is there any other diagnosable, let's even pretend, let's buy in for a second to the idea that that being trans is a delusion, it's a mental illness, okay? Compare it to, I guess, an eating disorder. You know, with an eating disorder, therapy is like an option, but a lot of the time you end up in a rehabilitation where they actually, you know, they might give you an infusion of nutrients and then help you get on a schedule with eating while you're in therapy, getting like the mental health treatment to say, like, to affirm, like, you know, where is this eating disorder coming from or whatever. You still treat the medical aspect where you're not eating, right? So with trans people, you do usually have a number of years of therapy involved and the medical treatment at the same time. Is there any other thing where it's harming you and it's harming your health and it's harming your body? Like, do you take someone with an eating disorder and say, you know, you can get therapy, but we're not going to give you the IV infusion of fluids and nutrients for 3 years, let's say, which is what they tried to do in Missouri recently. Like, is there any other form of healthcare where you receive a diagnosis and then they put you in a situation where you have to wait for care? Do you get diagnosed with depression and then you have to wait for 3 years before you start the medication? Like, are you required to do 3 years of therapy before they'll put you on antidepressants? No, usually they throw the drugs at you. Trust me, I spent 7 years having a bunch of different drugs thrown at me before it was discovered that I actually have PTSD and therapy was the way to treat my issue. We have evidence that treatment for transition, like, of course, you want to have some psychotherapy. Like, you want to help people maybe understand the reasons that they want to transition. That is something that I think can be helpful to clarify things personally, especially because as a non-binary person, me not having therapy actually caused me to start treatment later. Me not having a therapist meant that I didn't have the access to knowledge and information to start hormones at the young age. I was processing all of this by myself. So actually having affirming therapy would have helped me make the choice to start hormones earlier, potentially, or like helped me suss out my feelings about whether I wanted to get top surgery or not. I ended up deciding after many years of thinking about it and trying to figure it out myself that I don't want top surgery. And a therapist would have helped me figure that out sooner instead of me spending like 10 years trying to waffle and figure out my feelings by myself. So like, yeah, you should have access to therapy if that's the thing that you want. However, I knew that I wanted testosterone, and the only thing that could solve that problem was getting the testosterone. Me being in therapy, we would have discovered at the end of the therapy that I wanted to be on testosterone. So that's the purpose of therapy, is to help you decide whether you want those things. People who want you to watch and wait, really what they want you to do is get so far in to your natural puberty that you are not able to transition. They want you to desist. Like, they want you to think that it's too late for you. Like, oh my God, I'm 25, and if I started hormones today, like, oh my God, I'm already balding. My hair will never grow back. There's no way. It's doomer. I might as well just repress or lie down and rot. That's what they want. They want there to be fewer trans people. What do all of those things have in common? There is no increased risk of suicide in not being able to get a tattoo or not buy alcohol. I mean, that's another thing too. Yeah, like, none of these things are things that people have a demonstrable mental health outcome shift afterwards. Like, yeah, buying a pet can alter your mental health, but it's not like we have a clearly indicated common human experience where you're upset about not having a pet in your home, and there is like a specific correlation between not having a pet and committing suicide, and like thoroughly established decades-long precedent that getting a pet will reduce your rate of suicide significantly. Like, yeah, this is also a crazy comparison to make. As someone with an ED, not all people with EDs enter treatment at that extreme a level. Not all trans people need bottom surgery or they'll commit suicide. You know what I mean? Like, there is levels of extreme. I'm just saying, like, it is a place where mental health care and physical health care is important, and you need to treat both problems at the same time. But you can't deny someone who is malnourished the medical care that will help them get on track. I don't think that any of these people are actually gonna stop at adulthood. Because here's the thing, here was what End Wokeness did. This is already, like, this is an indication of the sliding scale thing that they're gonna do. They start at 18. Oh, you know, you have to be 18 to vote. You have to be 21 to buy alcohol. Look at that. There's already a 3-year jump here where this guy is saying, look, you say 18 now, but you say 21 tomorrow, and then the next time you say 25 because the brain's not even done being developed until age 25, allegedly. And it's just a way of pushing it further and further and further up until you eventually come out completely against trans-related care. Don't tell me it's a slippery slope argument, because it's been happening. Look at my Florida playlist. If you don't believe me, I have an entire list of videos about how it's been incrementally working up in Florida from, oh, you know, we just think that children should be protected from this. You know, you shouldn't learn about trans people. You shouldn't have access to trans-related care. For children, obviously. Oh my God, it's reasonable that children shouldn't be allowed to access this information. And then, oh, you know what? We've just unilaterally decided that transition-related care is not healthcare. And so we've decided that we're just going to take it off of Medicaid. So if you're a trans person in Florida on Medicaid, you don't have the ability to get transition-related care on your insurance. Like, your insurance won't cover it because it's state insurance. And then you have places in Texas where like Texas tried to make it illegal, or maybe they succeeded, I can't even remember at this point, tried to pass a law that would make it so that private insurance companies would not be allowed to cover transition-related care for adults. They are coming for you. They are coming for your friends. They want adults to no longer have access to care. They're succeeding at preventing adults from having access to care. So if you think Mr. Elon Musk, who is spending his entire goddamn day tweeting about trans people and replying to people about trans folks, just constantly talking about Target, putting fucking people in jail, like, they're coming for you. They're not gonna stop until we put a stop to it. Yeah, and of course, Diafla makes the argument, as we often do, if you really think that children can't consent to gender-affirming puberty, then you should also, like, because of the permanent effects, you should also believe that cis kids should be put on puberty blockers. Like, but that's not the thing. They don't believe that irreversible changes are the problem. They believe that irreversible changes are good if it is going to naturalize you as the gender you were assigned at birth. They think that puberty is a good thing with all of its irreversible changes because, oh, you know, most people are cisgender, and they don't care about the tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars in some cases that people have to pay for corrective surgeries. And they don't care that a lot of these things aren't correctable. Like, if you grow super tall, what are you gonna do about that? Like, there are some experimental surgeries to make you shorter, but they're dangerous and experimental. So they don't actually care about permanent, irreversible changes. They are explicitly against trans people. They want to force you to be normal. Elon, puberty is good. Also, Elon gets hair transplant. Yeah, and we've pointed that out. They get gender-affirming care all the time. It's considered kind of freakish, but not ideologically unacceptable for cisgender men to get surgery to make themselves taller. That's a thing now. That experimental surgeries to make you taller, or like hair transplants, which are a regular thing, boob jobs. Nobody is out here campaigning against cis women getting boob jobs, or frankly, against anyone getting nose jobs, which have one of the highest regret rates of cosmetic surgeries. No one is saying you need to go to a therapist for 3 years in order to get a nose job. Nobody cares about that because they specifically don't like trans people, and they will be hypocritical in every conceivable way because fundamentally, like I don't even know that there is a point to pointing out these hypocrisies, because they will just find a way to weasel out of it, because they've already written their conclusion. They've written their conclusion, and that's that gender-affirming care for trans people is wrong. Anything that cisgender people do is good and correct. Mutilating children, quote unquote, is bad when trans people are getting life-saving surgeries, but it's a bad thing when trans people are doing it, but it's a good thing when we sterilize intersex children because we claim that their totally healthy internal gonads are going to become cancerous someday. Mutilation on children is a good thing when you're correcting intersex kids and you're cutting off the tips of penises because Dr. Kellogg convinced you that masturbation is bad. Those are all good things. Those are all great. It's a problem that we've medicalized the talk about transition because a lot of propaganda from the right hinges on weird misunderstandings of kids being transitioned and treated to achieve some outcome. These people are also against social transition. These are the kind of people who also think that you should not let a young kid cut their hair. Like, a little girl needs to have long hair. If that little girl says she wants a boy's haircut, that's bad. You should not allow her to. Or if a little boy wants to grow out their hair, you shouldn't allow it. These fascists are unreachable, but I mean all the worried bystanders get tricked by the specific ways they talk about trans kids like they're not agents. They actually are. Yeah, that's true. Like, children are fully capable of making informed decisions. Children weigh in on whether they are on what kind of chemotherapy they want when they are diagnosed with cancer. Like, children weigh in on what their options are getting surgery. We let kids become ballerinas even if they are gonna permanently have messed up ankle bones. Denying a trans kid a medical transition is the same as forcibly transitioning them, and normal people would not support doing that if they understood it clearly. Like, if we were to say this parent forced their little boy to grow out their hair long, they forced their little boy to wear dresses, obviously that sounds terrible, but when it's a trans boy, that's acceptable to them. It's acceptable to take a young child who knows that they are a boy and force them to wear a dress to put them in a certain gendered box. That is a good thing, according to these people. If it were a cis kid, a little girl, and you forced her to cut her hair into a boy's haircut and told her that she was a boy, that would be obviously horrendous. But if you do it to a trans girl, if you force the trans girl to get a haircut and you force her to throw away the dolls that she got for Christmas, that would obviously be torture. You would clearly see that it is unacceptable to do that to a child. But when your position is that being trans is fucked up and being cis is good and normal, then of course you're gonna have that position. We call it Gillick competence in the UK. Yeah, the Gillick competency, that you can demonstrate as someone who's under the age 18 that you understand the kind of healthcare that you're getting. You understand what you're gonna be getting into. TLDR, trans kids know who they are. This is hypocritical nonsense. It is crazy that we are constantly attacking the competency of children as though they don't understand the consequences of their actions. You can explain to a child what's going to happen to their body and have them understand and be able to consent to it. If you are an adult who knows that child and you're working with a team of medical professionals who know children in general, they know these illnesses in general, like they understand comorbidities, they can tell the difference. Like, the therapists that these kids are seeing can tell the difference between a kid who is seeking attention and a kid who has earnest, continued, like, discomfort or incongruence with their gender. That's what the process is for. When you see that statistic that says 80% of trans kids grow out of it, that's because that statistic is of all of the kids who were brought in to be checked out. Like all of the kids who were questioning their gender, it was determined through the process of checking which ones actually need that medical care. They were able to determine that 80% of them did not need that medical care. It's not that 80% of people who identify as trans grow out of it. It's that a certain number of kids might question and their parents might be aware and concerned enough to take them to get checked out. And then they determine through the process that those kids don't need transition-related care. And the 20% who do go on puberty blockers, they generally continue on in their care and go on to hormones later because the process works as intended to discriminate and delineate between kids who don't actually need that access to care and kids who do. In my own family, I have 2 younger siblings. Well, I have 3, but let's just only focus on the 2. The youngest one of those was vocally gender questioning when she was a little kid and has now kind of seemed to settle into being cisgender, and that's totally cool. The older one did not have any questions about gender when they were younger, at least as far as we knew, and is now trans identifying as an older teenager. Like, in my own family, you can see that yes, sometimes gender questioning results in realizing that you're just cisgender, and sometimes gender questioning results in you realizing that you are trans and you do need to transition, and that's why the medical people get involved, is to be able to help you determine, okay, my child is expressing this and we are trying to understand it. Can you help us understand it? That's what the professional process is. When you're a younger kid, it's less of a big deal for you to be sort of gender nonconforming, right? And we should allow that. We should allow gender exploration in young kids because it's fine, because being trans is okay, because being trans can even be a good thing. When you accept yourself and you're in society and you're just going about your life and you're going about your day, you're healthy. Like, that's a good thing for you. But it's the worst possible outcome to these people. It just doesn't matter how much data there is. They will claim that the data is faulty, and then they will in turn use faulty, biased data and completely not see the irony in it and make our lives worse, restrict access to our care until someone stops them. And I don't know how that's going to happen exactly, but it's going to need to happen at some point, because the direction that we're going is increasingly not good. I've been talking for over a year now about how this is a genocide. This is like, you could call it the lead up to a genocide if you want, but people are already dying. People have already committed suicide because their access to care has been cut off, or because of the hatred against trans people in public. People are dying already. This is a war. This is a war of attrition, a genocide by attrition. They're trying to starve us out slowly by denying our access to medical care, by refusing to give us basic dignity in our documentation and in our interpersonal lives. Like, they want us to be dead, and they are succeeding so far. So rule number 1, Demon Mama has said it, I will continue saying it, don't die. That's your one job. You have one job, and that is to not die. We're gonna make it through this, somehow, one way or another. As a community, we will make it through, and we will lose people. We have lost people, and we will still lose people. Your job is to be there for them before they're gone. We gotta pull together as a community. No fighting in June. We're not doing bi-lesbian discourse. We're not doing kink at pride discourse. Knock it off. Get it together. We have an enemy, and we need to be cohesive against that enemy. Happy Pride from myself and my patrons, especially want to shout out Tiago Nascimento, Mersh Rolvog, Amanda B, Danielle McDonald, Sarah A, Spooky Heather Sylvia, Robin Olson, Michelle Winter, Athiette, Wellington Marcus, Jamie Jam, Desi Quiche, Suzanne Maynard, Nova, Kevin Young, Sojo, Elizabeth Bartell, and Mr. Atheist.